Welcome to the Unlist. Today I'll be talking about the House of Les Abstraits, which is a YouTuber brand, to put it bluntly. It's a house formed by Eugen of the You Smells Good YouTube channel, and it's done in conjunction with a rather noteworthy perfumer, Antoine Lee. You may be familiar with some of his work for various designers and other niche brands. Now, before I get into what I think of the brand or anything of that nature, I must say full disclosure that I do not know Eugen personally. We have never directly spoken, nor do I think we will probably ever directly speak. Most people on that level in this community ignore me. I'm like the little annoying fly that buzzes around them while they're trying to eat their soup or whatever. So I end up getting swatted away because, you know me, I don't have much of a filter when it comes to my opinion. I tell it like it is, and that's usually not to the liking of most people in that level of the playing field. So hence, I just usually get benignly ignored. Every once in a while, if I ruffle the wrong feathers of a content creator of that size, they send an army after me. That happened a handful of times on Instagram, which is one of the reasons why I don't really use Instagram. I got tired of having to castle off against white knights. That gets really ridiculous. But I just want to say for the record, I have no bad blood with Eugen. I don't know him, know really nothing about him, not friends with him. And thus, most importantly, I did not get my fragrances from him. Another thing, when you're like me, you're a speck in the spectrum, a grain of sand, basically in the beach, is brands don't send you things. Brands don't really reach out to you, especially if you become famous or infamous for having a fairly honest opinion. They don't want honest opinions, they want promotion. So whether it's a YouTuber brand or a designer or a higher end niche brand, I don't get bottles. Hell, I don't even get samples. I get nothing. I get big fat zero from these perfume houses. And typically the only way I come across anything like a Parfum de Marly, a Raja Dove, whatever the case may be, Jeremy Fragrance's line back when he had a line, it's gone now, but the only way I come across any of that stuff, Navitus was the same way, is if a store sends it to me. If I have any sort of inroads with a seller, a third-party seller, usually an online store, somebody with a small brick-and-mortar perfume store, like Parfumerie Nazarene here in Seattle has allowed me to smell a lot of the Navitus stuff in the past. There is Enchant Parfums, who is actually responsible for me having these Les Abstraits, by the way. So shout out to Anuj. Anuj is the reason why I even know these exist, really, when it comes down to it. And a handful of other perfume shops across the U.S. that are willing to mail me samples because I bought something from them, and maybe I chat a little bit with them, in DMs directly. Le Parfumeur up in Canada is another one that I've had dealings with. Fragrance Vault is another one. Fragrance Vault is in the Midwest United States, and they've sent me some things too. So that's it. Third-party sellers are how I get these things, because the houses want nothing to do with me. Either one, I'm insignificant, or two, I'm like a little yapping chihuahua, and they're like trying to get me to go away, right? It's basically how it boils down. And frankly, I don't mind, because I get to have my integrity that way. I get to say what I want to say. And there's no consequences other than maybe me getting blocked, then hitting the block button on me, which, again, doesn't hurt my feelings at all. I don't care. Life goes on. I do the things I want to do, and I enjoy my life. So that out of the way, you guys know I can be completely straight with you on these Les Abstraits. I can be very abstraight with you. And the general consensus from me and all of my various personalities in my head, we have reached consensus, and I like the range. So I guess if Eugen is watching this, he can go like that. This little know-nothing guy likes my fragrances. Oh, yay, I'm happy. This little nobody over here with his 500 subscribers actually likes my fragrances. So yes, I do generally like the range. I do have a bit of a bone to pick with one of the fragrances. but the other two I would purchase if they weren't so goddamn expensive. So that's one bit of criticism right there. They're really expensive, and they're a little bit outside of my price range, being the working poor like I am, the blue-collar schmuck who stares down the rent every month and then stares down all the food bills that keep going up in the utilities. Really put a crimp on my perfume buying habits. I've really had to kind of stop collecting because cost of living is out of hand now, and my pay is not going up to match it, really. So I used to be in the market for some of these, but not these days. So not unless I want to eat ramen for a week straight, and frankly I don't. So hence I don't tend to even explore fragrances in this price range anymore. But like I said, these came across my desk thanks to Anuj, so that's why I'm able to talk about them. And I generally like them. I like the Les Abstraits. I like Antoine Lee's work here. Like I said, a little bit of a bone to pick with one of them, but we'll get to that when I get to that fragrance. So by and large, these are of a different stripe than most of your YouTuber fragrances. So I want to dispel any notion that these are like big compliment bombs. These are in the typical designer tropes of this one is the Invictus one, this one is the BR541, this one is the Aventus one. We saw a lot of that with Navitus, and I have no problems taking a dump on Navitus because most of their fragrances are overpriced crap. So, and I was very blunt with that when I made that video on them, that they just grab in YouTubers, they grab in content creators, they sit them down with a range of fragrances that they don't really have much actual input on. They say they do, but they really don't. And then they just get to have their names on the bottle or whatever, and then they got to push the line. That's really it. And they get a cut of whatever sales. But it's all just a big racket, like most things in the fragrance market these days are just a racket. But these are thankfully not like that. These aren't made to satiate the compliment bros over on Fragrantica or on Facebook. But neither are these really going to pique the interest of your typical elitist snob type. The kind of people that tend to hang out in the Arige Lador circles or the Ensar Oud circles or the other natural perfumers. No disrespect to the perfumers. They really can't control the kind of audience they get. They don't really get to pick and choose who buys their fragrances, right? But those kind of fragrances, the Atars, the all-natural stuff, Alfori is another brand, they tend to attract these really big hipster types that, kind of like this. And they would not like these either. And the real reason is these are mixed media. These are not all natural. These aren't Atars. These aren't made from 4,000-year-old Mysore sandalwood fossilized distillation found in like the tomb of a long dead pharaoh or something like that. This is not that stuff. These are mixed media. They use synthetics. They use naturals. They use a little bit of everything. And Antoine Lee is an industry perfumer, so thus he uses industry techniques that he learned by going to school and training with these materials. So this isn't somebody in their bedroom with a perfume organ full of oils they got from a head shop somewhere. This is not that, okay? So dispel that right now. The kind of person that would buy these, I think, at least, based on my experience with them, the kind of people that would buy these Les Abstraits are really fans of vintage fragrances. These feel like they were all inspired by designers of the past. So various degrees of the past. One of these is like 2000s, one of these is like 80s, and then one of these is like 70s. So we skip the 90s. Eugen is not a fan of the 90s, I guess, because he has the 70s here and the 80s here, and then he's got the 2000s in here. Skip right over the Spice Girls era, unfortunately. Some of you were hoping that there was like a Cologne bomb fragrance in this line. Well, you're not getting it, sadly. Now, the fragrances themselves are all marketed unisex, but the taste on display here evidently pulls them towards the masculine. Now, this is my opinion. Eugen may say no, they are unisex, but everything I find that is behind these fragrances, the inspirations behind these fragrances, feels more pulled from the masculine market, the masculine designer market. There are some nods to some feminine fragrances here and there, certain note choices, but by and large, these were inspired by men's fragrances, in my opinion. 10-minute mark denotes the individual evaluation of each fragrance, and 3, 2, 1, here we go. So starting off with La Dollar Esquisse. I'm going to mess the French up. Sorry, guys. You know me. I'm a know-nothing guy from Baltimore with a high school education. I don't know how to say half of this shit, but I do my best. La Dollar Esquisse. It means the divine pain, divine suffering. And this was the one that launched the house. And this one is probably my favorite one. If I was going to drop the like $300 after shipping and tax this would cost, I would probably spend it on this one. But, you know, again, I don't have that kind of money lying around. But this one reminds me of like a what if Earth 2 scenario. Like if you're a fan of DC Comics and you know Flash and all the different versions of Earth that exist. This is like an Earth 2 version of Chanel Antaeus, which means that Eugen is really proclaiming his love for vintage Antaeus with this fragrance. But it's not a clone. It's not an Armaf fragrance. Okay, it's not a clone. But you can tell the big Castoreum leather riff that's in the base of this is really, really being pulled from Antaeus. And the way the woods work with this, okay, the little bit of aldehyde opening in this, the way this is compressed. Antaeus has a very I guess, characteristic compression. It's a rose sheep at its core, but the rose sheep facet has been smushed like a sandwich between beeswax and these woody notes and carnation and all these other materials that spice it up, polish it up, and then kind of s'more it like this with the graham crackers. So when you smell Antaeus, you know at its heart there's a classic rose chypre at play, or sheep, however you want to pronounce it, but it's so compressed, like a heavy metal guitar tone, just really sharply compressed, mids are scooped out, that's the way it presents. So he's taking that compressed vibe, but then he's adding some Middle Eastern tones to it. He's adding some Gulf-inspired Amouage, Montal Mancera, you know, Spirit of Dubai, brands like that. He's putting in some of that Gulf feel to the Antaeus compression. Okay, so it's like it's not a clone, but that Polish vibe is there with the compressed materials. But he's adding a more noticeable Turkish rose in there. He's adding some incense in there, some frankincense, some myrrh, some other materials. So it's kind of like an Earth 2, like I said. It's like what you would get if you were to take the Antaeus thing and run it through Amouage filter, like you're filtering it. So you get that sort of Middle Eastern vibe. There's no oud in this though. So don't expect a big fat phenolic sort of note. Don't expect a huge barnyardy sulfuric kind of thing, and you're not going to get that here. If you want that, then Montal has some fragrances that you can buy, but you're not getting that here. But you're getting the rest of it though, okay? And it's nice. I like it. It's my favorite one. It's the one I would probably buy if I had the money lying around, but I don't. Next one up is the one that I take issue with. The one that I don't really like as much as the rest because I feel like it's a little too on the nose, pun intended. So this one is called B.A.I.M. So first things first, it looks like Bellamy, right? The name looks like Bellamy, but it doesn't smell anything like Bellamy, so don't worry there. It's not a spicy leather. We've already got the leather represented here with the first fragrance I mentioned, so the second one's not leather. But you can tell the nomenclature is very much trying to be like a little bit of a play on words there. It doesn't mean, it's not Bellamy. Bel-Aim means something entirely different in French, but it has that automatopoeia thing going on, right? So now, what the fragrance actually is, it's sort of like the I Love Dior Homme fragrance, which is where I kind of take a bit of umbrage. The one that was based on like the Antaeus profile, but built up in a Middle Eastern way, it's different enough that it doesn't feel like it's a direct homage. It feels like it's doing what a lot of musical artists do, where they combine some of their heroes together. You know, like an example would be the band Kix. The band Kix bases a lot of their song structures off of AC/DC, very simple chord progressions, but then they also add a lot of flamboyance from the glam rock scene to create a particular brand of hair metal that had the simplicity and catchiness of AC/DC, but the tongue-in-cheek glamour of a band like Twisted Sister or the New York Dolls, right? So that's why Kicks became a big success in the 80s. So the Antaeus compression by way of Middle Eastern vibe is what I get, and it's a similar feel. It's like it's a mixture of inspirations. This one just feels right on the nose. Let's do a niche quality Dior Homme, right? And I'm sure Eugen's going to get mad at me saying this. He's going to take offense to me saying this, but it's fine. I'm not saying that it's bad, okay? I'm not saying that it makes it a bad fragrance. I'm just saying that outside of a couple like key switcheroos on materials, like there's not really cedar wood in here. There's not really a lot of noticeable vetiver in here. This is sort of like Dior Homme if it was done with more of, again, that Middle Eastern style. So we're putting in incense. We're taking out the woods. We're putting in incense, right? We're also switching out some of the synthetic iris material for actual orris butter. There are still ionones in this. They're unmistakable. But the ionones are kind of sharing space with real orris butter now. So that real orris butter does give you a bit of a rootier, softer, more pillowy iris. The kind of iris you get from a vintage bottle of Shalimar, which was also one of the first Oriental fragrances released by a French house, right? So it's kind of got that Dior Homme by way of Guerlain. So we're doing the whole vintage Jacques Guerlain treatment to the Dior Homme profile and putting in some incense, putting in some sandalwood. In place of cedarwood, there's sandalwood in here. So you see what it's doing. It's kind of taking the Dior Homme profile, the Olivier Polge 2005 profile, but it's elevating it. It's moving it up into a higher level of luxury. The blending is smoother. The overall effect is softer. The vanilla is not going to smell like ethyl vanillin. It's got more of a softer, natural feel. The whole thing is very plush, and that makes it high quality. Obviously, it makes it very nice. But it's just so on the nose that it's the one that I wouldn't buy. I mean, if a bottle landed in my lap for free, I would clearly enjoy it and wear it, but I wouldn't intentionally spend money on it, even if I had the money to spend. It would be the one I'd pass on. You don't own every fragrance from your favorite ranges, right? You don't own every single Guerlain. It'd be impossible. Well, this is one I would have to pass on. Even though I can appreciate the quality and design, I take a bit of umbrage with it being so on the nose like it is. Now, like I said, debate me to death, say I'm wrong, say I'm an idiot, say I'm being reductive and overly comparative. Do whatever you want. I don't care. It's not going to hurt my feelings. Like I said, I'm not sugarcoating how I feel about this stuff. You take away what you want to take away. It's my honest evaluation here. Last but not least, we have Descendres, which I'm probably also butchering, but again, it is what it is. Descendres is the only one that doesn't feel like it's really focused on a single fragrance as much, or a single type of fragrance. It feels like it's more of a pastiche. This one is a 70s green herbal chypre pastiche. So we're talking everything that was kind of made in that 70s milieu from the the early 70s or late 60s on through to the early 80s. So mostly when I smell this, I get a lot of Estee Lauder. I get a lot of Bernard Chant worship here. I get a lot of galbanum, heavy galbanum. The castoreum comes back. But now we're also dealing with another animalic that you don't typically see called Hyraceum. Hyraceum is a material usually only found in North African perfumery because it's a very pissy, urinous kind of smell. Not real palatable to Western noses. Even people who love civet don't like Hyraceum. It's too much for them. You find it in a couple of fragrances, like L'Artisan Parfumeur had a fragrance called Dzing. Those of you who remember Dzing, discontinued sadly, that had Hyraceum in it, and it kind of smelled like a circus. It smelled like where the elephants sleep, right? That's what it smelled like. So that's what you're dealing with when you use Hyraceum. So what you're getting here is you're getting a very period-correct 70s green chypre fragrance that has a lot of galbanum in it. Again, bergamot, a lot of dry white floral, lily of the valley materials in the heart. And then the base The base is all just leather stuff, oak moss, patchouli, very terpenous, heavy, nostril tinging patchouli. So if you're a fan of Alliage by Estee Lauder, if you're a fan of Aramis Devon, which is another Estee Lauder product, if you're a fan of Chanel No. 19, if you're a fan of One Man Show by Jacques Bogart, if you're a fan of Yadigan by Caron, all those really big, mean green fragrances from that era, then this is kind of the Eugen, send off to that era. And it's not really, like I said, one single fragrance you can pin it down like you can with the other two. It's definitely more of a cross-section of let's fit all this into one fragrance, and it's very nice. Honestly, most of those fragrances now are discontinued. Devon is gone. Alliage, I don't know what's happening to that. One Man Show has been gutted. Yadigan is still serviceable, but not as good as it once was. So a lot of those green fragrances are frankly not really available in their original format. So if you want to smell like that, pretty soon this might be your only choice. You want to live in that 70s green era. This is, even though it's, like I said, 250 plus shipping, or tax, it'll be $300. This is going to be one of the only real ways you're going to have to enjoy that scent profile without digging deep into eBay or something like that and grabbing one of those old bottles. But if you're someone who's already well stocked in that style, you're already well stocked with all your old Castoreum, Galbanum type of things, the little bit of Hyraceum they toss in here is not going to really make or break it for you. So it's going to be one of those things, well, oh, do you need another one like that? Do you need another choice in that style? If you absolutely love that style, you love the greens, you're a big green fan, and one more can't hurt, then sure, knock yourself out. I mean, like I said, I like it. If I could afford it, I'd buy it. But my first choice would still be the La Dolce Esquisse would be my choice. That's my number one from the house. And there you basically have it. That is my quick and dirty evaluation of Les Abstraits, the Abstracts. Abstracts, yes, the Abstracts. There you go. I fucked that up. Good line, very small line right now. Don't know how many more are going to be released, if any more are going to be released. This could be it for the brand. I don't know. These YouTuber brands kind of come and go pretty fast, right? They don't last super long. But if it sticks around and we see more fragrances, I will do those as they show up. Individual videos if necessary. You can read my written reviews for all three of these on Base Notes if you want to. They're all there. Eventually, they'll be doled out to my blog if you hate Base Notes for whatever reason, which if you do hate Base Notes, you'll hurt my feelings because I like Base Notes. And that's my opinion. So opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one, and they typically all stink. So no disrespect. Like I said, once more, if Eugen sees this video and he decides he hates my guts, then sorry, bro. If you like my honest reaction, I generally like your line. So again, there's not really much to argue about. My criticism comes from my opinion and my taste only. Okay, I'm not the arbiter of truth for anybody. And this has been the Unlist. Hopefully you enjoyed watching it, and I'll see you next time.